What if I told you Satan wasn't the only threat? Long before modern conspiracies, a man named Maurice Doreal uncovered an ancient war against shape-shifting reptilians hiding in human skin. These beings, described in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, control our world through blood rituals, war, and deception. And in 1931, Doreal claims he was taken 12 miles beneath Mount Shasta, where he met the last survivors of Atlantis. This is the truth they don't want you to know. Maurice Doreal, whose real name was Claude Dodgin, was born in Sulphur Springs, Oklahoma in 1898 and died in 1963. He translated the Emerald Tablets and founded the White Temple Brotherhood in Denver around 1930. Doreal claimed that while he was lecturing in Los Angeles in 1931, he encountered two Atlanteans who transported him to a gigantic cavern 1931 kilometers below Shasta. Subsequently, Doreal developed an elaborate cosmology of the Earth's interior, including descriptions of underground races drawn from the alleged testimonies of the Atlanteans. In 1925, he translated the Tablets of Emerald, attributed to the also legendary Egyptian god, priest Thoth, who was the keeper of knowledge more than 38,000 years ago. In this text, in a chilling way, it is described that in this world come beings from the underworld attracted by blood, who take human body and who live among us to submit and dominate us. According to his memoirs, Maurice had contact with the so-called ascended masters, beings of higher spiritual evolution, who live in a plane or astral dimension, who allowed him to have access to the understanding of the Emerald Tablet, and not only to a fragment, which is a small cryptic text, from which much current philosophy is revealed, like the one in the book The Secret. Maurice had access to the complete book, of which narrates in his translation the existence of these beings who take flesh and live like us. Beings reptiles in their primordial nature that take positions of authority and govern the destiny of humanity. Maybe that is why we are always at war and there is constant bloodshed in the world. Ancient records describe that the Reptilians came formerly and mixed with people. However, there came a time when they went into the shadows, symbolically and literally, and hid behind the apparent human aspect of their hybrid lineages. The Emerald Tablets, supposedly discovered under a Mayan temple in Mexico, describe the Reptilians, their ability to transform, and the way they possess people in positions of power. These documents coincide remarkably with recent experiences and reports. His full name is Tablas de Esmeralda de Thoth, which was a deity of the Egyptians. They are said to be 36,000 years old and were written by Thoth, an Atlantean king priest who supposedly founded a colony in Egypt. Their tablets, tells the story, were taken to South America by the Egyptian pyramid priests, who finally kept them under a Mayan temple dedicated to the sun god in Yucatan, Mexico. Maurice Doreal, the translator of these tables, states that he recovered them and finished translating them in 1925. According to him, only later they gave him permission to make part of their content public. The reader can read the entire story and the content of the tables in English on this web page, http://crystallinks.com emerald, html://http crystallinks.com emerald, html. There is also a book. However, one does not have to believe all the details of this story to notice the similarity between what these tables say and what is being discovered today. The tablets speak of the children of the shadows who manipulate this reality. I speak of the ancient Atlantis. I speak of the days of the kingdom of shadows. I speak of the coming children of the shadows. They came out of the great depth, called by the wisdom of the men of the earth, with the purpose of getting great power. In the remote past, before Atlantis existed, the men of those times were the ones who delved into the darkness, using dark magic, calling beings from the great depth below us. Then they entered this cycle. They were amorphous, of another vibration, and they existed hidden for the children of the men of the earth. Only with blood could they form a being. Only through man could they live in the world. In past ages, they were defeated by the masters, pushed down to the place from where they had come. But some stayed, hidden in spaces and planes unknown by man. They lived in Atlantis as shadows, but sometimes they appeared among men. In the form of a man they moved among us, but only for the eyes they were like men, with a snake's head when the appearance dissipated, but they appeared to men as men among men. They entered the councils, taking forms that were similar to those of men, giving death to the heads of the kingdoms, taking their form and ruling their men. Only by magic could they be discovered, only by sound could their faces be seen, wanted by the kingdom of shadows to destroy man and rule in his place. The masters were powerful magicians, capable of lifting the veil of the snake's face, capable of sending it back to its place. They went to the man and taught him the secret, the word that only a man can pronounce. Then they quickly lifted the veil of the serpent and threw it out of place among the men. But beware, the snake still lives in its open place, sometimes to the world. Hidden walk among you in places where the rites have taken place. Again, as time passes, they will take on the appearance of men. Called, they may be, by the teacher who knows whites and blacks, but only the white master can control and bind them in life. Do not seek the kingdom of shadows, for evil will appear safe, since only the master of light will conquer the shadow of fear. May you know, my brother, that this fear is a great obstacle. Be the master of all in the brightness. The shadow will soon disappear. Listen to my wisdom. The voice of the light is clear. Look for the valley of the shadow, and only the light will appear. Whatever the origin of this information, it tells the story of the manipulation of the reptilians and how they do it. Kings and queens, political leaders, bankers and businessmen, the main owners of the media, and those who lead the army are the serpent-headed beings that hide behind a human appearance, or their puppets and puppets. They are the reptilian hybrids that, since they have a human aspect despite coming from different origins, have managed to trick humanity. Actually, they are the same reptilian tribe. The Emerald Tablets narrate that the reptilians, from the shadow realm, try to destroy man and rule in their place. The kingdom of shadows, the hidden spaces and planes unknown to man, are the interspatial planes, a fraction that is beyond the visible spectrum of the human being. The phrase, only by sound their faces could be seen, refers to the fact that a certain frequency of sound destroys the energy projected by the human holograms, and then what is behind can be decoded, the reptilian form. Interestingly, the tables say that, in former times, they were defeated by the masters, pushed down to where they had come from, a phrase that resembles a biblical passage from the Apocalypse, where the dragon is written in reptilian terms. And the dragon was despondent, the old serpent, the so-called devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was struck down on earth, and his angels were slain with him. And he bound the dragon, the old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and imprisoned him for thousands of years, and threw him into the abyss, and closed it, and sealed it over him, so that he will never deceive the nations again. The Emerald Tables also identify why Satanism and reptilian hybrids are closely related. Then they entered this cycle. They were amorphous, of another vibration, and they existed hidden for the children of the men of the earth. Only with blood could they form a being. Only through man could they live in the world. These passages explain that the reptilians reside in another range of frequencies outside the visible spectrum of the human being, and that to manipulate this reality, they must have a body with which to do it. Only through man could they live in the world. Narchimin ent and trato. The phrase, only with blood could form a being, explains why the reptilian hybrids that occupy positions of power at present are obsessed with the rituals of human sacrifice and blood ingestion, just as they have been since they arrived centuries ago. According to our version of time, they drink the blood of human beings because it is the vibrational sustenance of the energy field of their human hologram, their veil. The lineages of the Watchers, or fallen angels, are what have been behind all wars and dictatorships of all kinds throughout history to this day. They boast of the suffering and murder of their victims, and, for them, wars are only rituals of sacrifice on a large scale. What happens, for example, in Palestine every day is orgasmic for them. Conclusion: the enduring legacy of Maurice Doreal and the shadow war for humanity's soul. Maurice Doreal's life and work exist at the crossroads of occult scholarship, prophetic revelation, and conspiracy, a twilight realm where ancient myth and modern paranoia converge. Born Claude Dodgin in the heartland of America, he would become a conduit for some of the most unsettling esoteric doctrines of the 20th century, centering on the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and their dire warnings about reptilian entities infiltrating human society. His claims, ranging from encounters with Atlantean survivors beneath Mount Shasta to transmissions from ascended masters, paint a portrait of a man either profoundly enlightened or deeply deluded, depending on one's perspective. Yet, regardless of skepticism, the themes he propagated have seeped into the collective unconscious, resonating with age-old fears of hidden puppet masters and blood-soaked cabals. At the core of Doreal's teachings lies the assertion that the Emerald Tablets, purportedly penned by Thoth over 36,000 years ago, reveal a cosmic war between enlightened Masters of Light and the Children of Shadows, shape-shifting reptilian beings who crave human suffering as sustenance. These entities, he claimed, infiltrated Atlantis, orchestrated its fall, and now operate through hybrid bloodlines, masquerading as human elites while pulling the strings of global conflict, economic oppression, and spiritual degradation. The tablets describe a grim symbiosis. These interdimensional parasites require human blood and fear to maintain their disguises, explaining the relentless cycles of war, ritual sacrifice, and institutionalized violence that stain history. What makes Doreal's narrative so perennially compelling is its eerie alignment with other traditions. The Emerald Tablets echo biblical prophecies of the Great Dragon, cast down to earth, Gnostic accounts of the Archons deceiving humanity, and even contemporary conspiracy theories of reptilian elites like those popularized by David Icke. The recurring motif, entities from a shadow realm who mimic human form, manipulate power structures, and feed on chaos, suggests either a universal archetype or a suppressed truth bleeding through cultural boundaries. Doreal's insistence that sound frequencies could unveil their true forms parallels modern claims of targeted individuals who report high-pitched tones triggering visions of reptilian faces beneath human masks. Critics dismiss Doreal as a fabulist, his Emerald Tablets a pastiche of theosophy, Lovecraftian horror, and pulp mysticism. Yet, the persistence of these ideas, from ancient Sumerian tales of the Anunnaki to today's viral conspiracy lore, raises uncomfortable questions. Why do so many disparate sources describe a hidden hierarchy of non-human rulers? Why does blood ritualism recur among the powerful, from ancient priesthoods to rumored modern elites? Doreal's answer, that we are livestock in a vampiric system, is terrifying, but it provides a perverse coherence to humanity's self-destructive trajectory. Ultimately, Doreal's legacy is not in proving the existence of reptilian overlords, but in exposing the human psyche's hunger for explanations that defy the banality of evil. Whether his revelations were divine, delusional, or disinformation, they tap into a primal suspicion that the world's suffering is not accidental but engineered, and that the architects of our misery may wear our faces while belonging to something far older and darker. In an era of deepening distrust in institutions, his warnings feel less like fringe fantasy and more like a dissident's handbook, a call to seek the word that unmasks the shadows. The battle he described between light and the veiled serpent continues to play out, not just in secret societies, but in every individual's choice between awakening and submission. The Emerald Tablets may be myth, but the fear they exploit and the hope they offer are undeniably real. What's your opinion about it? Leave us your comment. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. I love hearing from you. Check out more videos on the screen, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.